Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you all can hear me. My name is Hikaru Peterson. I'm professor of applied economics at the University of Minnesota and one of the co-founders of the Center for Rural Enterprise Engagement, or CREE for short. On behalf of the CREE team, including Drs. Lori Baker and Cheryl Boyer, the other co-founders, we're so pleased that you are here with us for this webinar about touchless transactions. We'll be spending the hour talking about how we can provide e-commerce guidance for rural business managers considering online sales. So before we proceed, just a kind reminder to please mute your microphone, turn off your camera, and use the chat at the bottom of your Zoom window to ask questions. I hope you can we've been all become pros at using this Zoom, that you'll find that chat function of the Zoom at the bottom of your Zoom screen. So let me briefly introduce the Center for Rural Enterprise Engagement and the CREE team. So back in 2012, we are a team that saw the need for generating and providing resources for farmers and other small rural-based businesses to help them navigate the online environment. And we can show our faces now. So here's our small but mighty team. We bring various disciplinary expertise from our respective institutions. So Cheryl, Dr. Cheryl Boyer on the left, she is our horticultural marketing specialist. She's based at Kansas State University, where all of us were at one point when CREE was established. I'm the second one from the left, and I'm trained as a food and agricultural economist, and I'm located at the University of Minnesota. Dr. Lori Baker is in the field of ag communications, and she's based in University of Florida. And Anissa on the far right is our research and marketing associate. She's working for Lori, but is based in Kansas. And so thank goodness for these technologies that allows us to connect and work together remotely. So it's actually Anissa who will be responding to your chats throughout our webinar and moderating the question and answer time at the end. I think it's what we do is best expressed in our mission statement. So we are transdisciplinary, multi-institutional thought center. We try to generate sources of knowledge about new media marketing. And it really is like our whole effort is to enable rural and agricultural-based businesses to flourish in ever-changing environment. And wow, what a change in our living environment we're going through together right now. And so for this hour today, we are talking about how we can set up an online shop in a hurry. And as we're putting together our webinar, we came up with 3 sections. So here's our overview. In the first section, Dr. Baker will be covering how you can relate to your customers using the audience analysis tool. And then Dr. Boyer will go through the different platforms to set up your store so you can receive your orders and payments. And then we'll circle back to Dr. Baker to strategize how best to meet your customers' needs at this time of COVID. So with that, Dr. Baker.
All right, thank you, Dr. Peterson. Yes, I'm going to cover analyzing your audience briefly, and this slide here says, for the most part, when we first start thinking about our audience, maybe they aren't detailed and don't have heads per se, but as we move in and start to learn a little bit more about them and think about their needs, we can start providing what they need through our products and our services. So I have a few tables here next that just describe how we can start to think about our audience and what their demographics and background mean for our messaging. So it's a high-level overview, but kind of thinking about their education level and what that may mean for our communication in these times of COVID. It may also be a technology capability. Are they going to be able to use some of these platforms from a customer end to purchase your products and receive them in an easy way? Will they be familiar with the terms that you're using? This may be the first time that they've purchased a product directly from a farmer. So they may not know some of the terms that you're using. And thinking about their age group, again, are they gonna have a preference really for in-person, and you need to figure out how to make some of those things work, or how can you make this completely touchless process usable for them? Then we also want to kind of think about their psychographics, which is the next table here. And some of these may not matter as much for your audiences, but some of them may, depending on your product. So we're all in an interesting political situation right now, where we want to be careful with some of these choices and meanings, but it may matter where you advertise and where you promote your products, and whether they have the same background as you. So some of these areas may be blank, but just some things to think about as you're starting to kind of picture what your audience looks like. Next, we can move into some basic things that research says about where adults are online. Many of them, the majority of them, are online somewhere. This chart here comes from Pew Research Center, which conducts a lot of research about online and where people are using applications and what platforms they're using. So you'll notice a lot of the people there are on Facebook and Instagram, and these were in 2019, so they may have adjusted a little bit as well. But you'll notice some of the things we're going to focus on today. Facebook and Instagram are a big piece of where people are, but they're also on some of these other platforms as well. But this might be a type of resource to go back to. Also thinking about their location, if they're urban, suburban, or rural, that may make a difference on what platforms they're on and how you can actually reach them with your message, whether you're selling through those applications or whether you're selling through another platform, which Dr. Boyer will talk about in a little bit. So moving on to the next slide. We know that people are shopping online. Again, this is pre-COVID data. It was the current data that we had at the time, but Americans were online shoppers, with 15% buying online on a weekly basis. We're looking at conducting some of our own research to see how many people are doing that now, because they've been forced to, if you will. So the opportunity is kind of ripe right now to find people online and to sell to them in this format. The graph on the right there says half of adults over 50 routinely check online reviews before buying new items. And that will be one of the things that we talk about today, is how to get people to write those reviews for you, because that does often come off as a recommendation from a friend. So people are looking for those reviews, and that's a part of this process of selling online. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Boyer to explore the platforms, and then I'll come back on the end with customer concerns.
Thank you, Dr. Baker. And we will move forward and talk about platforms. Looks like we've lost a few of our graphics, but that's okay. We'll just keep going. Nope, there was a transition. So again, we're so grateful all of you are here, and we want you to think about how to get started. I think a lot of people were caught unprepared when the pandemic hit, and they were trying to figure out, will this last a short time or a long time? How do I prepare? How do I keep my business going? And there wasn't a lot of information that was sort of curated for that group of people. I think we all know that we all have different working styles, and we all have different things that ways we want to approach. But for many of our rural businesses, whether they're agriculture or whether they are people who are supporting those who live in who have an agricultural business and live in rural America, they need access to these resources too. So we always encourage you to look at where you are right now. Most people have at least some sort of online presence, whether that is through social media alone or in addition to a standalone website. We always like to recommend that you have your own home base website, but that doesn't always happen, and that's fine. So think about where you are and how you want to reach people. And in some of these cases, it needed to happen so fast that it did happen on social media. And in others, businesses set up websites. And if you didn't know how they did it, it just kind of seemed like a lot to absorb. And there are a million platforms out there. I say that a million, there's a lot, and it can be kind of overwhelming. So we've tried to cover some of the common ones to help you think through what that might look like for you and what you need in an e-commerce online platform. If you're just getting started and it's in a situation like this with a big disturbance, you may not need every single product that you sell on the website. You may just need a handful, and that's fine. So think through how you can just get a presence online and communicate with your customers and your stakeholders to let them know that you're still here, you're still in business, and you're ready to go. So we're going to go through some of the platforms, what they can do, and what you might need to consider about them. If you have an existing website, depending on what level it is, if you feel like you have the capacity to add something on, add another plugin, if it's built on a website that offers an e-commerce integration that you can just easily add and add those pieces, that's great. Otherwise, if you want to use a different platform where you put all of your content on somebody else's platform to sell, that's an option too. So think about whether or not you want to do an easy integration, you want to start something new, or you want to do something that's maybe social or even simpler just with email. So we'll go through the different options for that. Some things you need to think about: there are going to be fees associated with this. There's going to be the cost of website hosting, payment processing. Sometimes you can roll those into the costs absorbed by the customers, and sometimes you absorb them yourself. Some of these websites have inventory management options, a lot of different customer payment options, and you want to know that the platform that you're working with will guarantee a measure of security for the people who are going to use it. So that is very, very important. Now, WordPress. You have probably heard of WordPress. There are quite a few websites that are built on this platform. I think it was sort of started as a blog format, but it has really expanded. It's the kind of platform that can really scale with your business. So you can start something that's very simple and very small, and then have the ability to add on all of these other pieces. So with WordPress, they have the e-commerce plugins WooCommerce and Authorize.net. We'll talk about those here in just a minute. They can help you manage recurring payments. And again, it can be simple or it can be complex. So think about what you would like to do. If you want a really flexible platform, WordPress is a pretty strong contender for that. Now, Weebly is the next one to talk about, and it has also grown over time. I think it was one of the first that was really easy for those of us, as I'm a horticulturist. So if it's got to be easy enough for me to figure out how to plug and play, and the thing that I'm trying to do, I can see it happen, and it's easy for me to move around. So it was very user-friendly platform, but it didn't have quite the depth that WordPress did, and it has also grown over time, and they have fairly recently offered e-commerce plugins, and they can take the payment tools Square, Stripe, and PayPal, and we'll talk about those again here in a minute. And it also has a function that helps you automatically calculate tax. So if that is a piece that's important to you, especially where you are and how you're trying to get information to customers, then that might be an asset that you need. They do have shipping and inventory plugins. Now, a plugin is a set of tools that you can add to your website. So it gives you more functionality than just the basic, but every platform has a lot of different plugins, and you can pick and choose what makes sense for you. And it's just a suite of tools that you add to your website. So you wouldn't need all of them. You would just need to choose from one. So it's nice to have different ones to choose from. I like that Weebly helps you manage coupons and gift cards. A lot of people with the pandemic have offered, especially in some rural communities, have offered the option to purchase gift cards to help with the cash flow for some of these businesses. And so it's nice to have that option already available in your platform. So one thing I thought was nice, they talked about customer reviews. They have these badges, which are just little images that you can be able to use to say whether or not, like, you still sell this product, but it's sold out right now. So it's not that you don't have products, it's just that you've sold all of them, and when they will be back in stock soon, or if you want to have a sale on them. So that's a nice feature that Weebly offers. Wix is very similar to Weebly in terms of its easy to use format with just little modules, plug and play. They have their own proprietary plugin called Wix Stores that offers some of those same e-commerce features and payment options. They also have inventory management, coupons, and discounts. Shipping it's less automatic than some of the platforms, but they do offer some plug-in tools for that. And their website claims that payments are commission free. I'm not exactly sure how that works out, but it's something to consider and to look into. Now, Square. The other ones we've talked about were primarily for websites or blogs that shared information. Square was created as primarily an e-commerce site. So the goal from the beginning was to set up ways for people to be able to sell. But they also offer a very robust payment system. So you'll see that here in just a minute because it's also a standalone payment system in and of itself. But if you go with Square, they integrate all of that really well. So they accept all the major credit cards, including Apple Pay, Google Pay, and they have their in-house payment processing. So because they have these two different platforms, it can integrate really well with your in-person brick and mortar sales. So they sell, or they will provide little devices that you can swipe cards with. So it really can move around with you and just be one place where you have all of that happening. So I did notice when I was preparing for this webinar that they have offered some new features that were not present on some of the other platforms that help you facilitate local delivery and curbside pickup. So if those are things that are of a concern for you, then this might definitely need to be on your list. There were some others that mentioned it, but it was a pretty big feature on this that I thought was worth checking out. Shopify, clearly in the name, it is also primarily an e-commerce tool. And so it's set up to build a website. So it's not really a plugin. It's a standalone platform that you would want to put all of your content on, but they offer a little bit more flexibility to do things like bulk import, manage your customers, relationships. But what I thought was really cool was that they offer a marketplace kind of setup. So you can hire a Shopify freelancer or an agency that will help you set up the site. So if you are feeling really strapped for time and you need help, this is a way that you can just provide photos, information, and have somebody else who's maybe a little bit more gifted with words and with setting up websites to have them help you with that. I know that's kind of a lot of how we function too. I'm a horticulturist and we all have different strengths. And so I think that's a nice feature of the Shopify platform. All right, so Amazon, you might consider Amazon. Amazon can do everything. It does all the things. So you're very visible. People can find you, but you do have to do a fair bit of work to make sure that your presence on their platform is quality. So there's a little bit of work there. They do have a lot of rules. One thing with Amazon is that you are not allowed to in any way let people know that you have that you are a separate business from Amazon. So to them, you're third party, and they're very limiting on how much you can market your business, which is something to be aware of. So they've recently gotten into selling plants. So we've done some research on the Amazon plant store, so live goods is a little bit different than something like a hard good, such as a book or a t-shirt, in which case they actually make quite a bit of money off of stocking those hard goods for you and shipping them out. So I don't understand the Amazon machine to its very core, but there are a lot of pieces to that. So we do have some best practices that we'll talk about later to help you be successful if you choose to go with Amazon's platform. But I think it really depends on who you're trying to reach with your products and who you're trying to help have access to them. So just a little bit about payment tools. I mentioned WooCommerce earlier. So this is completely integrated with WordPress. It's kind of like Wix and Wix stores. So WooCommerce is really integrated with WordPress, but you can use it on other websites. They have a lot of different plugins that can integrate with your email newsletter system, with Google Ads, tax, shipping, other types of payment. You don't have to use the ones that they have in-house. And it also offers some functionality through Facebook. So it's the social media part of that as well, but it's primarily a payment tool. Authorize.net is it's a very trusted authority in terms of accepting payments. It can accept everything, including something like e-checks. It offers fraud protection. It's very powerful, but it's kind of tricky, and it's less user-friendly than some. So on the backside, it's very spreadsheety, I would say. So if you're fine with that, if that's something that you're comfortable with, they offer a lot of that. We used it for a while, and I will tell you, it was tricky. It was really challenging to actually delete our account and tell them that we didn't want to pay the $25 monthly fee to use their service. It was pretty complicated. So they offer a lot, but there are some ins and outs to know and to figure out. So it's not quite as user-friendly. Square. So we talked about this earlier in terms of an actual entire e-commerce website system platform, but it also can be a standalone tool because it offers these, you can use the apps or you can use the slider. It has a lot of different features that can help you get to that touchless point that we're trying to talk about. So there's this difference between getting a website built and then having your customers pay for it without actually having to physically interact with them, and then delivering it in a way that customers feel safe receiving it from you. So Square is a good way to help you do that. As with all of these, it can start working instantly. It's fairly integrated. The transaction costs are similar, if not the same, among all of these. The big difference is how quickly the funds are deposited into your account. So with Square, it does take a day or two before it gets deposited into your account. So these are some of the features that they offer. So you can have this swipe or dip with the security part of the card, and this can happen in person, and they'll provide you a device for that. They can also offer the tap functions with Apple Pay and Google Pay, and that's a touch-free choice. Online payments. So if you're doing all of this online and your customers want to pay, it's also touch-free and remote-friendly. So that can happen from a distance. They have an app integration, so people can use that either remotely or touch-free. It'll help you with invoicing, and you can also do appointments. So we talk about appointments a little bit later, and this is a nice integrated functionality that keeps you within their platform without having to go outside and use several different systems. Now, Stripe is another one, just so you have choices with what you're looking at. Stripe will also sell you a little device to help you sell products in person. So if you're at the farmer's market or something like that, and you want to be able to use those payments, it also has similar information, but their funds are deposited after 7 days. So you have to wait a week before you actually get your money. It's very powerful. I felt that it was quite a bit less user-friendly than some of the plug-and-play things that we've talked about. It's very full of accounting tools. So all of these, I mean, even more than this, you can see the screen shuts off, but there's a lot of different things. So if you need something really powerful that offers a lot of different things, Stripe might work a little bit better for you from that perspective. Now, PayPal. A lot of people are familiar with PayPal. They're comfortable with it. They may already have an account set up. The advantage to PayPal, it's similar things up here for its advantages. The funds on PayPal are available immediately, so there's no waiting at all. You get it pretty quickly. And that's a big advantage for PayPal. It's integrated in lots of different places, and it's easy to link to. All right, now we're getting into peer-to-peer payment. So Venmo is probably the one most people have heard of. It's very tied to social commerce. So if you are in a Facebook group for an artisan that makes their products, and then they say, message me, they generally are going to want payment in this way with Venmo. Cash is a competitor to that. And just speaking from my own personal experience, I've used Cash. Their website looks horrible, but the functionality of it is actually really well, works really well. I've used it with my sister-in-law whenever we're working on things together. So that's been really easy. It's very basic. It works excellently. It's not fancy and pretty. Venmo's a little bit prettier than that, but they essentially do the same thing. So if you're working on maybe more of a social media selling situation, you might want to consider just focusing on very simple Cash or Venmo platforms for payment. Now, we talked about social. More and more we're seeing this, and again, we can't cover absolutely all of the platforms. I think we're seeing more and more selling within Facebook and Instagram and Pinterest themselves. It's almost a whole nother discussion. But just this week, we just saw this yesterday and we're talking about it this morning. Facebook is launching out a more robust e-commerce platform, and they're calling it, it's currently, or it was as of yesterday, Facebook Store. It's now going to be Facebook Shops, and it's fully integrated with Shopify and some of the other payment platforms. And this is again where you can have a group and people can say message me, and they can pay for it and do all the things that you need to just within the Facebook platform. So if you don't, I think that's for a more simple setup. If you really want a robust website that has all of your products, lots and lots of products, you're going to need a standalone e-commerce website. But for simpler things, or for things that you need to happen quick and you know your customers are on Facebook and you can get them there, then that might be a quick, fast integration. Or maybe it's just for some certain products that work well in that scenario. And the last one, this is very low tech. Email, phone call, ordering. This can also just be phone calls. I think a lot of my garden centers, this is what happened. Like, they weren't prepared for having an online website. Some of them did. And in that case, they offered just a handful of products. So they might say, well, we're only going to, if you want a petunia or a calibrachoa or a geranium, we will offer these 5 colors, and we will always have those in stock. So those are easy to get. So you wouldn't have all of the different, if you're a horticulture planter like me, you wouldn't have all of the different cultivars to pick from, but you could be fairly certain that you would get a generic color of something that you wanted. So keeping it simple would be good. You can also do this through email. So this modern day catalog ideas. If you already have a robust email list, you don't want to set up a website, but you can send them the list of products available. Then they can call you, or they can send you an email, or they might even text you, and you can set up all the payment and invoicing through some of the other platforms, and you don't have to do something completely new. So it really just depends on what your business looks like and what your objectives are and what you need to do either in a hurry or a little bit more long term. So I think as you think through these options, some people might still feel overwhelmed, but I think you can do something that's fairly quick, and then you can also do something that's a little bit more long term, so that next time, if we are looking at the scenario again in the fall, as we have heard might happen, that you're a little bit more prepared for that situation. So with that, I am going to let Dr. Baker talk about customer concerns.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Boyer. After covering some of the platforms, we did want to make sure, based on some of that audience analysis, that we were thinking about what customer concerns might look like both pre-pandemic and within the pandemic. So I think starting out with COVID-19 is important, and we have some current business recommendations. Also noting that these are changing daily, sometimes minutely, so it is really important that you keep up on current business recommendations and really make it clear to customers what you're doing to keep people safe. Following those guidelines, making them aware of why you're doing it, the purpose behind it is to keep them safe, to keep your employees safe. Also having social distance signage so that they know you're practicing those policies. You're also encouraging them to practice those. All of our laws are a little bit different. I know within the county that I'm in, they've made it a policy that everyone is supposed to be wearing masks in public, and you can refuse services if people are not, and that certainly is happening. But I hear that that's not kind of the cultural norm in some places. So knowing what those are and making sure that you're following the practices recommended by the CDC, mask, social distancing, cleaning, washing hands, making hand washing stations available. for your employees and communicating this, whether that's through your social media, whether that's through printed materials on your website somewhere, so that people know that you are practicing safe practices. The CDC has said that they don't think it can travel on packages currently, but that does change, and I think everyone feels safer just knowing that people know guidelines and are paying attention to them and protecting that. Disinfecting surfaces, particularly between customers, if you're in a situation where you're making reservations for someone to come and pick up at your store, making sure they actually see you do this. I think we've all probably been in situations where we're like, wow, I just touched a lot of things and I don't know who was here before me, even if I'm the only person here right now. Checking those guidelines regularly. The CDC actually has a particular site dedicated to small businesses, and they have a lot of great graphics that you can print and provide and share for how you're managing some of these practices. So moving on from practices and looking at how we can actually respond to consumers. Right now, ordering online may be new for some of your customers. It may be new for you to sell online. And so responding to them during a time when they aren't getting a lot of other information is important. So responding to all the orders of all kinds as quickly as you can. And for some of you, this may be setting up something automated that says, we have a lot of orders, it's important to you, and we will get back to you in X amount of time, and making sure you're consistent with that in following up with them. But just so they know, yes, it didn't go off into the big wide world web. I did reach somebody and they will get back to me. So looking specifically at responding to customers' needs, looking at pickup. So again, it's new to all of us. So telling them what exactly they can expect. Before they even order, if they can know that when I order, my order will be ready in 1 day or 1 hour or whatever is possible for your business, and then sending them information immediately about how that will be available and what time it will be available, and instructing them how to let you know that they've arrived for pickup. Make them prominent when they're ordering on your website on all of your materials so they know ahead of time, but then also sending it to them again and reminding them of that. Plans to call the store to inform them of their arrival if that's your process. Providing their vehicle description. Will you go out to their vehicle? Do they need to open their trunk? Do they need to turn on hazard lights to attract attention? Labeling any general pickup areas or racks for services. And certainly signs for traffic patterns and that type of information is really important. I know some of our favorite restaurants here in town, when they first started doing this process, you would arrive and have no idea, you know, there are 4 entrances, but where am I supposed to go and where am I supposed to stand? And even after I get there, if there's no one there, what do I do? So having all of those signage and information, both digitally and in person, is really important. And letting them know how you will make sure that they are safe when they're receiving their order. How are your employees interacting with them, both in an online environment and interacting with that product prior to them receiving it. Many of these are also similar concerns for the online customer, but we have some here specific to responding to online customers. They really may not get to see you at all. So it's even more important that you're able to continue that great customer service in an online environment. So let them know when they can expect their order to ship. I know a company that I order my pork from, Our Family Farms, does a really great job of this, describing on their website that we ship on Mondays and Tuesdays, and we do that to avoid shipping over the weekend. So if you order later in the week, your order won't be shipped till Monday or Tuesday. So, you know, I know that up front and I know what to expect. And then after I've placed that order, I certainly get an email that gives me more details about exactly when it will arrive and when it will ship. And then, of course, let them know once it has actually shipped, and provide expected shipping times and costs up front. Some people haven't purchased online before, or they don't know what a reasonable shipping cost is for some of these products. So again, describing, if you're shipping something like meat, it's heavy, it's dense, it requires some extra packaging and that type of thing. So making sure you're upfront with your customers for why it may cost a little bit more for these things, but they know why that is the case and what they're getting for that, and that you're taking extra care to provide them a quality product when it arrives. Also, communicating about the employee procedures when preparing their product for shipping is extremely important. They want to know that it is a safe product when it arrives to them. Talking about your care and use for your business and how you are providing a safe environment is important even when you're shipping the products to them. And then, of course, it's extra important, as we alluded to early on, to make sure you ask them to write a quality review for you and give them an example of that review. I have some examples a little bit later on so that you can mirror some of those and talk about what makes a great review. But first, I want to talk just a little bit about some of the attributes that are really important when using e-commerce. So we have gathered over a period of time some of our research and research done by others on what consumers are really looking for in purchasing through an e-commerce site. So I'm not going to highlight all of these, but I do want to talk a little bit about a few of them. They basically want to know that it's a quality product and that there's something guaranteeing it, that it's safe, that it's secure. They want to know if something's wrong, you're going to take care of it and you're going to make it right. Pictures are really important. They want the ability to see the pictures and see the merchandise. Sometimes that includes video. As Dr. Boyer mentioned, we have conducted some research of our own looking at what successful businesses on Amazon have done. And some of those are using simple videos, multiple angles of photos, and those have really been an important factor in increasing reviews of that product, moving closer to that 5-star area. People also, again, want to know those shipping charges that may impact their purchasing decisions. Selection of products is interesting. We really found that in the customers, even the large businesses that were selling online, were limiting some of their options. So maybe within the store, they had hundreds of options to choose from, but online they were only selling a select available products so that they were able to specialize and really give quality attention to those. So it's not just the small businesses that may want to reduce what inventory is available online. We saw larger businesses doing that in our research too. Certainly product price, on-time delivery, quick shipping, and product quality was high in all the studies related to this. I have a few more of these on the next slide here. Customer reviews, I just can't talk enough about customer reviews in the research that we've conducted and anecdotally when we've talked with stakeholders. If you get a few bad reviews out there, it's hard to recover from that. So we do have some strategies for helping you get that, but just knowing that I will talk about, but knowing that customer reviews are extremely important. Service after the sale, we talked about they want to know that you're a real person and you're able to help them and make sure that they have a quality experience. Awareness is a huge part, and so we do a lot related to marketing of products, and we certainly can't cover all of that today, but we've conducted a lot of research in that area that we can share with you through our website afterwards. But getting your product out there and promoting your product is really important, and social media can certainly hold a huge part of that. This next one here, suggested care information about after the sale, is so huge. We did some focus groups. The study was recently published in a journal, actually with millennials, asking them about purchasing plants online. And at that time, they were not interested in purchasing plants online. That's probably shifted with our pandemic here. We've seen plant purchases online go up. But all of them said, I love plants, but I kill them. I just have no idea what I'm supposed to do. So I'm gonna need a lot of information if I'm gonna be able to grow this plant and keep it alive. So having some detailed information about your product and how to use it. If you're selling a product that's edible, having recipes available. What do they do with this product after they receive it? Particularly if you're thinking about selling something like a box of vegetables and people just take whatever you have for that week. This may be the first time in their life that they've eaten arugula, or maybe they've never had kale, or they don't know what to do with some of these products. So recipes can also be a great way to tell people how to use and care for their product after the fact. Dr. Boyer highlighted a lot of the site security pieces, which is why we selected some of the platforms that we did. And often some of the reasons that people were actually purchasing here and purchase intent and behavior is because they already decided that they were going to do it. So I think that is one of the things that COVID-19 has helped us with, is people have already made a decision that I am going to purchase online. So you just need to make it easier and help them know how to purchase the right products for the right time. We have a few more details on uploading the products and some highlights what you can do with that. So focusing only on a few products, Dr. Boyer mentioned that, we've seen that in our research, but gathering multiple images of each product is important. And we've actually conducted some of our own research looking at which aspect of the products resonated with people more. And what we were really seeing is that they wanted high quality photos. They wanted to see it both in use as well as in the larger landscape, and maybe they wanted to have some people in those photos to know how this product might work and might be used. So we know you're all doing this pretty quickly, but as you're taking these pictures, you might as well take some pictures of not just the product, but the product in use, the product within your store, give them a feel for the whole shopping experience. And providing those long, detailed descriptions. Our Amazon research really showed that as the number of words within the descriptions increased, that the number of stars for that product also increased. And there's certainly some reasons why that might be happening beyond the length, but it does show that that length was important. Also recording instructional videos. Some of the bigger businesses were recording those videos that allow you to show what your product's going to look like when it arrives, how you can use that product, what you can do with it. We do have a playlist, excuse me, on our YouTube channel, and there's the URL there. We'll have it again at the end, just for creating some simple videos with some free tools, if that's something that you're interested in doing to promote your business now or during different times too. The shopping experience is also an important aspect. So consider offering some form of real-time shopping. Some businesses are doing this through FaceTime, through Zoom. You can even do it through an old-fashioned telephone, as long as you can organize that practice with your customers. So if you're out of something, they know that they can make an adjustment right away. They can know what it's like to be there. Also, if you're just looking at getting people in an online environment, but to your store in a safe way, you can schedule appointments. We've listed a couple of applications for helping you do that. Sign Up Genius is one, Microsoft Bookings is another. There's also an add-on form scheduler to Google Forms where you can do this as well. So that's another alternative. You also at this point may be thinking, holy cow, I cannot do all of these things. We don't want you to necessarily do all of these things quickly. We want you to be able to get up and running quickly, but really look around and see who can help you do some of these things. Think about people in your community who can help you with taking photos, who can help you with writing descriptions. Maybe some people can actually help you upload the content into the sales platform and get it ready. Some of these may be your current employees who you want to continue being able to employ, but other parts of your business have not been able to support them. So this might be a way they can plug in and help. Another thing that we've seen be really successful both in pandemic times and not is looking at other business partners. So perhaps you have meat for sale and your neighbor down the road has vegetables. Well, you could go in and create a site together to really lighten the load for both of you and to offer customers more of a one-stop shop for this type of thing. Marketing is certainly an important aspect, and we cover that in a lot of our activities that we do for CREE, but some highlights here is people really want to get to know you. They want to see the sights, the sounds, the smells of your retail establishment or your farm. They want to know what this experience looks like. So share that experience, and you can let users help you with this content too, really highlight some of the user-generated content of your products being used. What did somebody else use to make this product? How did they pick it up? How did they put it in their landscape? And think about how your product can really benefit homebound people and solve some of the needs for them. We've seen a lot of things about how people are isolated right now, and really plants in particular can be a nice therapy, but cooking can be that way too. And many of our ag products really solve some of those needs for people directly. I've mentioned all along we'd talk about reviews, so here it is, finally talking about reviews. There are some things that make good reviews. So when you're asking people to write reviews for you, excuse me, these are some of the things for them to consider. They really need to be detailed, specific, and honest. You don't want them to be too sales pitchy. You want them to call out stellar customer service. They can include constructive improvements for you, and then really feature images. What I have here is a recommendation that I wrote for our family farms after we received their product. I waited to write a review until I had used the product and took pictures. So that's an important thing to tell your customers, is we want pictures. So if that means you can't review right away, we don't really want a review that just says, well, it arrived on time and I put it in my freezer. We want to know how you used it and what you did with it. When you write a Facebook review, it won't let you upload the image directly on the review, so I had to put it in my comments here. So that's another thing to tell people, you know, please use an image, but you will have to insert it in a comment in this platform anyway. In Google reviews, you can upload the images at the same time. You may be asking yourself, okay, but how do I really get people to write me reviews? Well, you can ask your current customers, even if they haven't purchased for you in an online environment, you can ask them to write a review about the quality of your product. So in looking at those tables I showed you earlier about what customers really want, they care a lot about a quality product and quality customer service. And so those are things that your current customers can write reviews about, even if they haven't tried your online shopping experience. But those that are close to you, you could also follow up with them and ask them to write reviews as they are participating in this project. It's also helpful to give them an example. Writing reviews is kind of intimidating to people sometimes, so asking them to actually write a review for you if they have an example to go from is really a good thing. Also, engaging with them after the sale will encourage them to do this. You'll notice our family farms responded to me and said, we're glad that you're enjoying it. This was since COVID-19, and so she said, stay healthy out there. So responding with that goodwill and sharing good reviews, I feel like in this time people really do want to help you and want to help your business work. So a few reminders here before we get to questions. I know we may have some out there, is really just remember, don't let perfect be the enemy of good right now. We talked about a lot of things and how to do them correctly, but do them the best you can. Get your products up for customers to see them and continue to improve it as you can. As people give you suggestions, as you work through it, keep growing and fill in the details as you can. Businesses that are really able to adapt during this time are much more likely to thrive. So try something new, make it work, and choose what works for you. We do have many more things than what we were able to cover today on our online learning resource. We do, as I mentioned and put in the chat earlier, have a page dedicated specifically to this Touchless Transaction series. So we have a blog post, we have links to other resources. Cheryl went through a lot of platforms, but there's also some other platforms, and we've linked to a resource there that was not actually created by us, but they've done a great job with. And we are just kind of getting started on YouTube, but we have a few playlists there available to keep learning. And that's also where we will post the recording of this webinar so you can enjoy it. And also at our home institutions, you may connect with us. And on the last page, I have our email addresses if you wanted to follow up with us in that format. At this time, it looks like we have about 11 minutes left for questions. And so feel free to type those in the chat, and Anissa is going to facilitate those for us.
Yes,
hello, everyone. Yeah, I think I've been trying to field a lot of the questions on the chat room. But if anyone has any others right now, you can go ahead and chat them to the whole group. I think that would be easiest for us to see. I know Julie had a question. I didn't know if any of the co-founders knew if there were any guidelines or licenses for selling veggies, shipping veggies, I should say. I was trying to look up the answer, but hadn't quite got to an answer yet, so.
We've actually talked about that a lot within our group because we've received that question before. I don't know, it looks like perhaps Dr. Peterson had to get off, but she researched this for us as we were preparing for this to see if we should talk about regulations for businesses. And in our exploration, it looked like those were really state specific, that some states had some guidelines, others didn't, but that there wasn't one go-to place necessarily for finding that information. So what we really encourage people to do is contact your state Department of Agriculture to make sure that you're following any of those guidelines that exist, particularly if you're shipping out of state. But in general, your shipping provider also has recommendations for those. So we explored a lot of websites in preparation for this and saw that, you know, UPS and FedEx and a lot of those types of providers also had guidelines. So as you're preparing your packaging and your materials, being aware of those guidelines is certainly important.
And I would add too, Laurie mentioned that there were some other platforms that we couldn't cover all of them as well. The website, the resource we're putting on our page that we're sharing is from an organization called the Young Farmers Coalition. And they pulled together a bunch of platforms that were specifically about selling food via shipping. And so there are some platforms like Barn to Door that are really tailored for this idea and concept of selling food directly from a farm to consumers. And we're seeing more and more of that. I just talked earlier this week with my sister-in-law, who is not in agriculture at all. And she was talking about how they knew and figured out how to find their farmers, but a lot of people don't know how to find their farmers. So we need to make it easier for them. Next question, Anissa.
Sorry about that. Louise has a question about, and I might have a clarification for you. Louise, are you meaning just selling online in other countries? I don't know if you can respond this quickly, but that was our next question. He says, all of this I can do in any country. And I think that probably depends on different platforms, but I'll let you guys go ahead and field that question.
Yeah, I suspect it's a platform issue whether or not they're allowed to operate in other countries, and then other countries might have their own platform. So this is mostly for what's available in the United States, but I suspect that many of them can be managed across borders or operate in different countries. I just don't have all of that detail written down.
And I think it depends on the country as well. You know, sometimes I think we're surprised at the things that don't necessarily come from the United States. Our focus has really been within the US, and shipping guidelines would certainly look very different if you were shipping those overseas. So paying attention to those regulations is important.
While we wait for other questions to come in, I guess I know you all will probably mention it, but we do have more resources on our Touchless Transactions webpage. It's ruralengagement.org/Touchless Transactions. Sean has just shared a resource with the group about shipping plants to other states and those rules with those. So that's in the chat box if it's pertinent to anybody. And like I said, if y'all have any other questions, you can go ahead and type them in the chat box now.
And if not, look at us for not going overboard on time like we usually do.
While we're waiting on more questions, we could also go ahead and go to the last slide, which has information about an evaluation. We didn't charge anything for this, and we wanted to provide this resource, but it is very helpful for all of us. If we get your feedback on how we did, it is something we include in our annual evaluations every year. And so the more of you that are willing to complete that for us, we would really appreciate that. So there is a URL there. We will also send a follow-up in a couple of days when we have the webinar posted with a link to the evaluation. So when you have a bit of time, it's just 10 questions, I think, not very long. So we appreciate you doing that when you get a chance.
I'll also add on to that I've just put that link in the chat box. So if you want to go ahead and click it now and have it open for later, it'll be easy for you.
Perfect. Thank you, Anissa. And thank you. Julie said it was great info, exactly what she was needing. Thank you. We like to hear that. We're glad you were able to participate. And if y'all end up having follow-up questions, we're happy to follow up with you as well.
Well, without any further questions, you guys have our email addresses. We're happy to help. We really care. It's in our hearts about helping folks have, especially rural agriculture folks, but other people can learn from this as well, to just have a steady livelihood and enjoy the work that they do so that they can stay in the communities that they love. So thank you for being a part of our webinar, and please follow up and check our website at ruralengagement.org and our Facebook page, and we'll keep you updated on all of our latest research and doings and what we're up to in all of our states. So we're happy to help, and let us know what we can do for you. Thanks.
Great. Thanks. Have a good one. Bye.